I just want to come on and share about my positive birth experience that I had. And, just yesterday, a friend of mine sent me something on Instagram that said, let me pull it up so I am accurate here. It said that a large new study suggests doctors give black women unneeded C sections to fill operating rooms. Now, this was no surprise to me because I remember when I was being pregnant and I'm on all these apps, birth apps, about two different apps that I was on. And when it came closer to my due date, along with those people who are around my due date, I saw a lot of women who were like, "Oh, talk to my doctor, C-section scheduled. Talk to my doctor, C-section scheduled." And I was just like baffled by how many women were just resulted to C-section ahead of time, you know? And so I want to share my experience because I had an awesome birth experience. Now, not many people have that privilege, and I totally understand. We are all different human beings, every person is different, we all have different issues, granted. Now, but if you are healthy and you are doing all these things you need to do, I do have some tips to share with you guys. So that way, when you do get pregnant, you can do your part and let the Lord do the rest. I was never opposed to saying I can never get a C-section because that's not realistic, right? I My stance was if it is a medical emergency, then we can resort to that. But I remember speaking with my husband. I'm like, I do not want to be in the hospital room and hear Monica, "Oh, the baby's taking long. Maybe we should do a C-section." That is what I did not want to hear. And guess what? I did not hear it. So thank God again. Thank God again. This is why I am here trying to encourage someone out there, because I see a lot of women who are pregnant and then things like that end up happening. And then you're like, "Oh, it could have been avoided." Not all of them are avoided. Granted, medical emergency, that's why the doctors are trained to do it. But at the same time, as women of color, my women of color out there who are pregnant and expecting and hoping to have an experience, a wholesome experience while giving birth, it's not always the same. It is not always the same. It can be hard. It certainly can be hard. Okay, so some of the things that helped me to have a positive birth experience, one includes praying. I have come to understand that giving birth is mental. It's literally like 90% mental, and then the rest is like your whole body works with the mental. You've prepared to be able to go into that room to give birth. So mentally prepare yourself. Pray. Use prayer as your anchor. I prayed every single day when I was pregnant. Prayed with my husband from the moment before even conception. I was praying over my body, and then when we found out I was pregnant, every single day, my husband laid his hand on my tummy and prayed over me throughout the whole pregnancy. You know, and it's interesting. I have shared before how I didn't even know I was pregnant until later on, but I never had as many symptoms as a lot of women report, like extreme nausea and vomiting. I never threw up a day, okay, while I was pregnant. Never threw up. So there were some things that just never came up for me to tell me, "Oh, this is it." The number one thing, though, that really got me was tiredness. I was fatigued almost every single day. And thank God, with my job that allowed me to work from home, I was able to balance that off working and then manage to take breaks in between throughout the day so I can be able to nap. Okay, a girl was napping. During my break, you find me napping. I eat, find something to eat, and nap. Um, the second thing that we did, my husband and I, we looked into getting a doula. Because I was hearing a lot of, okay, so here's another thing. When you start to share with people that you're pregnant, you will start to hear people telling you their horror stories. Okay, I mean, some of them are beautiful, but a lot of the stories people were sharing with me, I did, whether I asked or I didn't ask, they just shared their horror stories when it came time to give birth, and I was just like, oh my goodness, I don't think um and that's what made me stay on my knees even more. The horror stories people would tell me, what happened when they were in the hospital. Even if these people were advocating for themselves, they still had all these horror stories where I was just like, Lord, I pray that that will not be me. Okay. I'm just like, that hopefully would not be me, because yes, napping was my greatest joy when I was pregnant. And so even now when the baby is taking a nap, guess what? I am napping with him. Well, except for right now because I wanted to come on and do this. Um, but do whatever you can to re-energize. I would nap, and then during nighttime, sleep was so hard, so I took advantage of my naps during the day. So again, going back to my second thing is hire a doula. So my main purpose of hiring a doula was because I was hearing about all these things. Well, when you give birth in the hospital, it can be very hard. People are the nurses, the doctors. They don't listen to you. I heard that a lot. They don't listen to you. They don't listen to you. So I'm a first time, pregnant woman. I'm a woman of color for that matter. So I was just like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? So I did hire a doula, very sweet. Brittany is her name. Very, very sweet lady. We actually hit it off right away. I spoke to a few other doulas before that. I did not have a connection, so that's another important thing. Make sure you find someone you have a connection with, especially if you're going to give birth in a hospital where you don't know anyone at the hospital, right? So my doula was amazing though. She came to meet us at the house. We met a few times. She did some trainings for my husband and I. We talked through things. She answered every question that we had. And when she didn't have an answer, she'd be like, okay, Monica, go ahead and reach out to your provider, because again, I'm not medically, cleared. I'm not a medical doctor. So there's some things that she was able to answer. There's some things that she didn't answer. What I liked about the doula is that when I was in the hospital while giving birth, she helped me with like certain movements. I rocked a lot, like dancing, moving around, helped me do different exercises. It literally was tag teaming because I would feel pain in my lower back. I don't know why the pain was shooting my lower back. And then another pain would be my left arm. So I had my husband on my left arm helping me with my pain, and then I had the doula putting her hand in the back of my in the back, so my pain in the back can try to go away. So it literally was a team effort. It was a team effort, and I want to shout out all the doctors and the nurses that helped me give birth, because everyone was God sent. And this is why I want to stress, pray for your journey, because your journey is going to look different from the other person. People will share their stories in hopes that they are encouraging us, but sometimes those stories can make us feel timid. We can be scared. We can be afraid. But look to God at the end of the day. Let Him, show you what it is that He wants for you to put out there. So number one is prayer. Number two is hire a doula. Number three, learn what you can and trust God with the rest. So I never really took a birthing course per se, but then there were forums and different chats that I joined in to learn. The price was just a little too expensive for some of the birthing classes that they offered. It's like, oh, one class for 2 hours, you gotta pay $500. I was like, I don't think so, not gonna work, So I utilized my doula to, teach me whatever she could, and then I joined different places for free. There's a lot of free things online. You just have to put in the time, research. If you're able to take that birthing course all the way through and through, do it. Do what works for you. I did a lot of YouTube videos. There's a lot of doulas on YouTube who are sharing their own experiences as mothers, what they did, what they went through, what they would do differently. They give you tips, and if you're giving birth in the hospital, what that would look like. So there's a lot of different avenues that you can take this thing with. The only thing is, take your time and do what is comfortable for you, because you know, not everything works for everyone. So do what you feel is comfortable for you. That's why I say learn what you can and leave the rest up to God, you know? Leave the rest up to God. Number 4 is have a birth plan and understand what is on it. When my doula sent me that birth plan, I was like, oh, yes, I'm so excited. I'm circling, like, yes, I want this, I want this. And so she came to the house for a house visit, and she goes, all right, let's go through it. And then a few times she's like, are you sure you want this? I was like, wait, what is that? Because to me, I thought I understood it, but then there were terms on there that actually meant something else. She's like, oh no, explained it further, and then I was like, oh, okay, yes, no, actually, I don't want that. This is what I do want. So that was very helpful. So have a birth plan, but understand what is on it. And then make sure you have I was told to make multiple copies, so I made like 5 copies. I gave one to my husband. My doula had one, and then when we got to the hospital, I gave it to the nurse, and the nurse was all for it. This is what I loved about my night nurse that day. I got in, super sweet, took me in, and she was just like, I was like, oh, I have a birth plan. She's like, okay, no problem, we'll go over it. Went through the birth plan line by line. She was compassionate, she was attentive, she listened. And she was not a woman of color, okay? It was God sent throughout the whole time. So we go through the birth plan, and she's like, oh, this is amazing. Yes, we do this. Yes, we try not to do that. Oh, we do this also. So let me tell you, it was very encouraging, because a lot of the things that I was hoping to have, the hospital is already implementing in place. So that in itself was very, very helpful for me. And I'm sure it can be very comforting for anyone who's at a hospital giving birth for the first time. Because, mind you, my husband and I were actually considering a home birth. Yeah. And so we were like, okay, I even looked around. But New York, honestly, does not have like birthing centers. That's the only reason why it stopped me from actually going through with it. The one place I found, they're still building, but then they're like, oh, they already have people who work, who are midwives and doulas. They come to your house and they get, but the place we lived in before, I wasn't comfortable having my baby in the home. So that's why, after much prayer and consideration, my husband and I were like, let's go to the hospital, and the best decision that we made. Okay. Okay, so moving along to number 5, involve your spouse, involve your partner from the beginning. You know, I remember growing up back home, usually you don't really see much involvement. I mean, as your parents when they're pregnant, I don't know if you guys remember your parents being pregnant and seeing if, your mom and dad, they were always involved in the pregnancy. It was different for me in my household. So I involved my husband from the beginning. Like each week, he'd be like, "Oh, baby, what week? Oh, let me see what fruit is the baby." He got so excited and wanting to know what the fruit was for that week, or what the vegetable was, comparison to like the baby size and growth. So that was exciting as we are going through the adventure together. And every time we go to prenatal visits, he came right along, so that way he's able to know where the pregnancy is, and if they ask any questions that he needs to be able to answer. If I'm not feeling too good, he steps in. So involve your partner from the get-go. This way you don't feel like you're carrying the load by yourself, because granted, you are the one carrying the baby, but he's there with you to be able to speak should you need him to be that voice. And he's actually the one also really speaking in the hospital should they suggest much, because the doula is coming to help, nudge you and encourage you to say, okay, this is what we said, this is what we said. But the doctors, legally, like the hospital, they will not listen to the doula, they will listen to your partner. Okay, so the doula can say something through your partner, and your partner can communicate whatever it is that you need to say, because once those contraction hit 9 centimeters, you're not going to be able to talk. Okay. um Talking about centimeters, guys, I did not know I was I had such high pain tolerance until I was in labor with my child. Okay. Allegedly, my husband and my doula were like, Monica, you have such a high pain tolerance, because those centimeters were at like 8 to 9, and your pain, when I asked you your pain level, you said, oh, it's about an 8, from 1 to 10. So thank God for that. And that is why I'm so grateful I opted to go give birth without medication. I was like, no, I don't want to do the epidural. I don't want the, what's the word? Pitocin. Sorry, I was trying to think of the word Pitocin. I was like, I don't want no Pitocin. I remember one of the providers at my clinic. I had seen her for the first time, and I was already 9 months pregnant, ready to give birth any day. She was just like, "Yeah, we can just induce you. You can go to the hospital. We'll give you a little bit of some Pitocin to increase your contractions." And I was just like, first of all, who are you? What are you saying to me? So that really put me off, but I'm glad that I opted not to do any of those things. Was labor hard? Absolutely it was. But with Christ, I can do all things, and that's exactly what ended up happening. Okay? So let's see. Oh yeah, by the way, when I was heading to the hospital, I was already 5 centimeters dilated, but I didn't even feel the contractions then. So going back to pain tolerance. So thank God for blessing me with that. But I hear a lot of stories, and so my providers were like, "We don't want you giving birth at home, because you're 5 centimeters now. Before you know it, you'll be fully dilated and not even know, and then just end up giving birth either at home or on the way to the hospital. So we want you to avoid that medically. Just be careful." So thank God it didn't happen, but listen to your body, listen to your body, listen to your body is another thing I'm going to tell you. Your body will tell you, you're going to feel that fetal movement. They're going to advise you to count. So make sure those are things that you want to be aware of. You want to be counting your fetal movements. You want to be able to say, okay, did I eat something? Did I drink something cold? Eat something sweet. See if the baby is gonna move. If none of those things are working, you contact your provider, and then they can advise you on what to do next. Number 6, birth playlist. I created a playlist on Spotify, and I named it Mama Momo. Okay. So this is something that's gonna again work for you. And my playlist was all worship. Okay. I intentionally wanted to create the atmosphere for me, and I put it on my phone, had it playing in my room. And let me tell you, oh my doctors, oh, doctors, nurses, everybody was just God sent. The the overnight nurse ended up leaving because I checked in around 10 o'clock in the evening. The next day, around 7, she was leaving. And so she's like, Monica, I spoke to another nurse. She is a holistic nurse, and she is big on pushing for natural birth without medication. And I was just like, music to my ears. And so that nurse ended up, they switched shifts. The new nurse came in, and lovely. From the moment she walked in, my husband and I, we just felt like a presence in the room, like in a beautiful way, where she was just like, all right, Monica, I saw your birth plan. I saw this is what you want on it. And she's like advocating for me. It was so nice because I when my contractions started to increase, I would just be like, Jesus, help me. And my nurse was just like, yes, he is here with us. He is here with you. He's gonna help you be strong. So hearing that from my nurse, I was just like, oh Lord, amen. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So have a playlist, put whatever you want on it, but I would definitely recommend something soothing, something calming. All right. I still have my playlist. I just add on to it now. So if you want my playlist, let me know. I'll shoot it right over to you. I don't mind. Sharing is caring. Number seven, positive affirmations. All right, so this one is really big because as my contractions got more intense, it got harder for me to talk. And this is where your partner again comes in. So I would call my husband. I'm like, say positive affirmations. And so he starts to whisper. I'm like, why are you whispering? I'm like, I don't want you whispering positive affirmations. Say it out loud. And so he starts to like say whatever he's saying. And then the doula gave him some snack. I think he had like peanut butter, some peanut butter snack. Wait, is it peanut butter? I don't know. She gave him something like a snack to eat. I don't know what that was, but I could not stand the scent. It smelled so strong. So when he was near me whispering, I was like, I need you to move. Your breath does not smell so good right now. So he moves away. He's walking away. I'm like, babe, where are you going? Come back. So it was a lot of that as my pain got intense. I was just like, where are you going? Come back. Where are you going? Say some positive affirmations. Say some positive affirmations. And so, but that was really big for me because before I was saying it without a problem. But then when my contractions got stronger, it literally went to my head. And so I had to remind myself mentally, I had to remember to breathe. Ooh, honey, when they say practice breathing, it's no joke. So practice breathing, okay? Because when you are in labor, that's not the time when you want to learn how to breathe. My nurse, though, my day nurse did teach me like a different technique of breathing, which I found to be very helpful for me for the rest of the time that I had while waiting to push. But whew, it was something. Okay? So yes, positive affirmations. Have your partner say them out loud to you when you get to that point. Because when I try to start to repeat them, then it takes away my mind from thinking about the pain so strongly. I didn't say it takes it away completely, but at least it lessens the intensity that I'm feeling from the inside. Labor is no joke, okay? And number eight, last but not least, make sure you are doing some daily workouts. I don't know what that is for you, and again, everyone is different. So if you are in the position to work out, I highly recommend you do some workout. Work out your body, walk every day, do some squats. Do squatting, do walking every single day. And then I remember my doula recommending doing, I'm probably gonna butcher this word, perineal massage. You know, down there, you do some massages back and forth a few times in a week. So that way, that prevents you tearing. Okay, even if you do tear, then at least the skin is not too tight. That's something that I was able to do, but something that I really also appreciated my doctor as I was pushing, she was also doing that, helping me. And so I think I tore just slightly. It wasn't even like a big deal. My doctor was like, oh, I don't have to stitch it, but I will just because. I was like, oh, thanks. So that was really sweet. So again, here is the list for, really any woman can use this list. But what really just encouraged me to do this was this post that I saw on Instagram that says a large new study suggests doctors give black women unneeded C-sections to fill operating room. And that is not okay. We got to do something about that. So knowledge is power, but then it's only power when we utilize it. So you need to know that you are not alone in this. Join some groups. A lot of things are now online, so know what you're filtering out. So be careful, taking in all that negative information, because there were some places where I found, like, I had to be like, oh yeah, not for me, thank you, but not for me. You need to learn to say, okay, thank you for sharing that, but that's not for me, and then move forward. Because a lot of times you're gonna find yourself trapped in that, okay? And so that's something that you don't want to be a part of, okay? You don't want to be a part of that. And so this says that in a large study of nearly 1 million births at 68 hospitals in New Jersey, researchers found that obstetricians are more likely to perform unnecessary C-sections on black mothers than white mothers. In fact, black women overall were about 25% more likely to deliver by C-section. So I hope I can encourage someone out there that that does not have to be the norm. It does not have to be the norm. Make sure you're praying, making sure you have a wonderful team around you, and communicate your needs. Communicate your needs, involve your partner throughout the whole process. So this way, if they need to jump in and say something, they say something. My husband and I already spoke about it before we even went to the hospital. We said they're not taking the baby out the room unless, like, we need to know everything that's going on. The moment they had to take the baby out the room for some kind of exam, we went with them, and we can see what they're doing behind the glass, some testing they needed to do. Another one time they had to take the baby out was when he was having his circumcision done. But that was the only time. All these other time, we were like, no, baby stays here with us. It's okay. We can sleep in the room with the baby. You don't need to take him to the baby nursery. Did not want none of that. So you can do and you can be all those things, but just know what, know your rights. Know your rights and be able to trust God that God got you. So once more, to list off all the things I said. Number 1 is prayer. Number 2 is hire a doula. Number 3, learn what you can and trust God with the rest. Number 4, birth plan and understand what is on it. Number 5, involve your spouse. Number 6, make a playlist, a birth playlist. Number 7, have positive affirmations. Number 8, do your daily exercises. Even if you're walking for 10 minutes, even if you can't walk out, because I was pregnant through the winter, so there were some days that were just super cold outside, I couldn't go out. I would just make sure I walk around in my house and do some squats in the house. All right, so I pray that these tips will be helpful for you, whether you see this today or whether you see this 10 years from now. I hope that is helpful for you. As women of color, many years now, from the beginning of time, we're always targeted for something, and it doesn't have to be like that. My husband and I found that through prayer, we were able to have God ordained people in that delivery room, and we're so grateful. I remember the day nurse who was specializing in holistic caring. Her shift had ended, but because, oh yeah, this was the most amazing, empowering part for me, even for my husband, as I was pushing my Dr. Mercer, and my nurses, and other nurses around in there, and my doula just started cheering for me. It was the most empowering moment as I was pushing. They were like, yeah, Monica, let's go, you got it. Literally, it felt like
You ever been at a basketball game and you see your team is about to go score and you're like cheering on the players? That was my experience while giving birth to my son. It was so awesome. You know, they did that about 2 to 3 times, and my baby was out. I was just like, oh my gosh. And so one of the day nurses, her shift had ended, but she stayed on like an extra half hour just so she can cheer me on for my baby to be out. It was amazing. Okay, I pray that other people will be able to have more positive birth stories. I pray that more black women will be able to have more positive birth stories so we can be able to share with the generation to come. So thank you so much for tuning in. This was my first time doing a recording and a live on YouTube. So excuse all the mistakes. Usually I take time, I edit, but this is coming to you raw. So I hope you like it. I pray that God's presence, peace, love, and this grace called favor will be with you today and always. Thank you so much again for tuning in. You are listening to You Are Kingdom Woman podcast with your girl Monica, aka Momo. God bless you. Until next time.